goes to you. Okay, the pleasant good day, our wonderful viewers and followers on this wonderful page of the Executive Marshal Liberia. It is my pleasing pleasure on this day to again welcome all of you to our live feed. I'm sure you've been following our podcast here from Washington, D.C., the United States of America. We are in a open gallery, and of course we've come to continue our information dissemination to you, our people back home and wherever you joining us from. The media team covering the president here comes from the Ministry of Information, Cultural Affairs and Tourism, of course the aide of the president, and of course the president press office, along with the state media, ELBC. I'm sure we've done a lot in terms of giving you the needed information necessary for your knowledge following the president activities here in Washington, D.C. You've listened a few hours ago to the president at the opening ceremony of the most talked about forum here in D.C. We've come to peek into the president's speech, and to do that we are happy to bring our team covering His Excellency the President. And so let me welcome Siku Kalasco Domaro Jomande, and of course Abuaka Fufana is also on set, and Isaac Solo Kegbet is also here. Our team from State Radio are running several beats, and so they could not join us at this point in time. But whatever the case is, I'm sure the energy from our team here will give you a clearer understanding as to where we are. Let me start with you, Boakai, Solo, and Kalasco, and again to say, gentlemen, welcome to this live feed. And I'm sure that taking into consideration what we've witnessed and what we've been following, let me get your individual impression from the hall that brought young people from the continent in the numbers to listen not just to the U.S. Secretary of State, but to listen to the icon of Africa, ye the world. Let me get your opening comments. I will start with you, Kalasco. You follow, you listen, you saw His Excellency the President today. What was your impression when you saw the President walk in the hall?
Well, basically, let me say again, thank you, Smith, and the rest of the team, for covering what the President is doing in D.C. in representing the motherland. And I have followed the President for over 5 years. And today, again in Washington, D.C., representing Liberia at this stage in this great United States of America and with our ally, it's not a strange thing. I basically knew that the President, like I said in the podcast a few days ago, that the President was prepared. The President was in a very high gear to represent the country like he has always done. And today he exemplified that exuberance, whenever he comes to represent Liberia. And from everything that the President indicated through the speech, I know we'll go into that later.
Yeah, sure.
But I think it was a good representation from the President, and I think Liberians, from the look of things from social media, are clearly demonstrating that love and extra support that's supposed to be given to their leader, they are honestly doing that. So as for me, I say it was quite impressive as always.
Quite impressive as always. Opening comments from Sekou Kalasco. Let me come to you, Boubacar Fofana. We had a chat in the hall a few minutes before the president walked in. Strangely, he got introduced by the U.S. Secretary of State, and from the reception from the crowd, the audience in there spoke volume when President Manneh Weah was announced, and then President Weah was announced to the public. You, as one of those communicating the activities of the president, what was running through your mind when you heard the U.S. Secretary of State talked about President Weah?
Well, I think initially when they said the U.S. Secretary of State was coming, I thought he was just coming to give the opening remarks. I didn't know that he was coming to introduce the Liberian president. It's not quite often that you have the chief foreign policy architect of the President of the United States cabinet introducing another leader of a country. You know, the U.S. believes in appearances, you know, and background checks and all of the different stuff, because assuming the narrative that some of the times the opposition want to make of President George M. Weah, assuming those narratives were right, Secretary Blinken would not have introduced President George M. Weah. That introduction was sort of a validation of his leadership. He specifically said he was thanking President Weah for fostering the solid bond that exists between America and Liberia. So when he made that comment, then he went into other platitudes and pleasantries about being in Qatar, you know, and having Timothy Weah's call against, you know, Wales, and then turning around and seeing the reaction on the proud father's face and all of that. You know, that was, so one of the points I've been making is that President Weah was chosen to speak at that forum. It was calculated. It was a calculated attempt to have him speak at that forum. It was because the pinnacle he's reached in his career, coming from when he was at the prime of his youth, you know, a professional football player. You already highlight that in his speech, but also it was referenced by the U.S. Secretary of State. And then when he was introduced, he came on stage. But before then, the U.S. Secretary of State, while making his introductory comments, said, "I have President Weah in the house," you know, and then there was this cheer in the crowd, you know, and then the president came on, shook his hands, and went into his speech. But I just wanted to say something before you move on. I think there was a bigger, I mean, a Liberian ambience had been created even before the actual deliveries of the speech started. Remember, we were just in the lobby, and then they were playing Liberian music. Mm-hmm. I think we should give that background. They were playing various Liberian music, and we were dancing to them, right? Yeah. And the other African diaspora, they were also dancing. Yeah. There was a lady who came up to us and said, "You guys are from Liberia?" I said, "Yeah, we're from Liberia." She said, "Well, I mean, I'm so fond of your president. I just want an opportunity to take a picture with him." She said, "My father has talked about him so much, you know." So, and we got that quite a lot from various members of the African diaspora. So it just tells you the level of support that he has around the world, regardless of where he is, in the U.S., Europe, Qatar, what have you. Blinken's statement was deserved. You know, so I heard you talk about strangely, but I think it was deservedly a compliment that President Weah has been paving the way to this moment.
Okay, so Wakai with his opening comments. Let me bring in Isaac Solo Kevin, who's also joining us here on set. Solo, you follow this president closely. You had a long, outstanding ties with President Weah. You've seen his interaction across global leaders. Today was another great day. He spoke to a very youthful audience. When you heard the president being announced as his press secretary, what ran to your mind coming out of the president, not knowing what he was about to put forth to the cream of who will be leaders that was eagerly waiting to hear what President Weah was bringing forth for them?
Thank you, Smith, and I just want to say a very big thank you to the entire team here, to those of our colleagues from the Liberia broadcasting system who are running all of beats to make sure the people back home and across the globe get a full understanding of what is unfolding here in Washington, D.C. and also to the presidential aide, Damaro, and then of course representing the Minister of Information, Deputy Minister of Finance. And likewise, thanks to you too, you have been doing extremely well since we got you. I think the president is one person that always look for the opportunity to showcase Liberia. And he's also somebody who everybody looks up to, probably want to see because of what he has done before. I mean, his own history. So don't make mistake to give him such a global podium. And of course, he's going to sell Liberia, and he's going to make sure that Liberia benefits. Probably people would not understand. They would think that Joshua is Martin podium, is speaking, and to make himself. He has already come to stardom. He's already a global icon, but he just want to make sure that those young people who lack self-belief come to realize that they have potentials, that they can contribute to the growth of the world, not just America, not just the African continent. So basically, it was no surprise for what he said today, and I knew exactly who he is, and I knew for the fact that when you take that podium, he will win over more and more people to him. So we were going to the message, as my colleagues have said, but I think that's the kind of person he is. Someone who looks for opportunity to serve as an inspiration to others, to motivate others, and to tell his story. Because of him, other people are dreaming. Because of him, other people feel what a dream is not just a mere dream, but it can be actualized. So, I mean, this one reason why they look up to him, why he was invited to speak to the young people, because like we are saying, it's really actually other leaders of people that are going to telling him that they look up to him. They have been admiring from day one when he was just dead on the soccer pitch, and even up to the time he was elected, they are being looking up to him, and they want to see him all of the time to be in his company, and he's not letting them down. Okay, he's not letting them down. Like Waka have pointed out, being introduced by the 71st U.S. Secretary of State, not just their introduction, but saying for the fact what you see of the president to say that this young man continue his thinking for strengthening the bond between the great United States of America and then Liberia.
Sure. So I'm very sure that we all feel the excitement of what actually transpired today with the president. But let's go into what the president presented today, and I will come to you, Sekou, because every time I see you run the corridor along with the chief of protocol to the president with his prepared text, sometimes not knowing what is in there until it is presented. When the president spoke today, you weren't far from where we were doing the live podcast. You were taking notes. I'm sure those notes were your catch of the president's speech. What did you capture?
Well, again, Smith, thanks. For each time the president speaks, the president is somebody that is, replete with wisdom. When the president spoke today, he spoke to the theme of why the president was speaking, trying to galvanize. And the president made mention something. Over half of the population size of Africa are all young people. Over 60% of the size of the population in Africa are all young people. So he's talking directly to the young people. The president made mention of his past. And there could be no better person to speak at this occasion today, where young people from diverse backgrounds, have converged to listen to leaders, listen to these inspirational messages coming from their leader. There could be no better person selected to do that than President Weah. Judging from George Weah's history, somebody that came from the dungeon of poverty. He came from way beneath the line of poverty to reach at the zenith of his footballing career, and left the footballing career. When he retired from football, he came to become a politician. He became a politician. He also reached at the zenith of politics. So it speaks to his perseverance level. It speaks to the kind of person he is. It speaks to the man that says, okay, I have endured all of the suffering. Now I am coming to make maximum use out of the potential opportunity that God has given me, to flourish. And I'm reciprocating that given talent to other people. He talked about, yes, during the war, he was in the diaspora, right? Because everything that President Weah did, it was in the diaspora, Smith. When he played soccer from Cameroon to France to Italy, it was in the diaspora. What did he do? He reciprocated, the gesture Africa has given to him back to African. He went to Zanzibar. He opened a water company there. He made mention that today.
I heard that today for the first time.
Yeah, well, of course, I know that. He went to Zanzibar. There was a water company.
I didn't know
there.
that he was doing some business in Zanzibar.
In Zanzibar, and that company was just sold quite recently because he decided to focus on it less. It was just so recently by President Weah, the water company. You go to even Abidjan up to Corinth. I was astonished too, because in the past I know that President Weah had his business here. But I was astonished to know that it still exists. And I went to Abidjan recently. I know that it stayed there. You go to other places. You come to the United States of America or Iran. So he has given back. So he was telling young people, thousands of young people that was in our gathering, say, okay, you can come because the opportunity is here. You can come here and better yourself. But don't just better yourself in Liberia. Give back to Africa, to where you come from. So that's the message President Weah was giving to the young people in the hall today. And you saw how excited, like Minister Boakai Fofana said, you saw how excited young people. You saw the Idris Deby. In fact, Idris Deby has decided to visit Liberia through a one-time interaction with President Weah, and we all know what that means. That man is a global icon, is a moving actor. So visiting Liberia and looking at Liberia's story is also speaking volume of what President Weah is doing. Since President Weah came here to Smith, he's been having different interaction with different stakeholders. So this is what President Weah brings. Hate him or like him, but what President Weah brings to the table is unique to only President Weah because of the kind of person he is.
Very well, Sekou. I'm sure that you didn't miss out on those words. And one person who's noted for picking into the president's speech every time without the president ending his speech and giving snapshot of those words from the president is Boakai Fofana. You are credited and you are very fast in repeating some of the key comments that comes of the president's speech. Not just today, we follow you very well. So that is one of your secret strength. But today was another day. Reading between the line, you had several things captured, not just from Blinken, but also from the lead of the day, His Excellency Dr. Weah. I'm sure it didn't come to you as a surprise, but there were some things that came to you for the first time in terms of hearing them. What did you pick up exactly today from the president?
Well, I mean, there were a couple of surprises there, like the Zanzibar thing was quite a surprise, but it just demonstrates that he's a global citizen. He talked about the general diaspora and his personal level of contribution to his homeland, but as also he was contributing in other ways. So basically, he was echoing what the U.S. Secretary of State has said, but also Gregory Meeks also said, Representative Gregory Meeks, the House Chair, the U.S. House Chair on Foreign Relations, he also said that Africans should invest back home. So President Weah was essentially saying that's exactly what he did all along. But during that speech, he talked about, the fact that Liberia and America have collaborated in various spheres, but specifically in the fight for democracy and human rights. We mentioned that on yesterday during our discussion, that Liberia has collaborated with the U.S. on many occasions. You remember at the UN or at other areas, other global bodies, Liberia always stand with the position of the U.S. That's the level of strong bond that's shared. And that's exactly why he was being commended today by the chief foreign policy architect of the U.S. President's cabinet. He said, thank you for fostering relations between America and the U.S. That's because of the initiatives. Even when other African leaders have refrained from doing so, President Weah will step up. Even the case with Liberia backing the position of America as far as the conflict in Ukraine is concerned. Not many other African leaders are come out so boldly and outrightly. But the president went further to talk about his personal, some of the efforts he's taken as a government to enhance diaspora relations with their homeland. For instance, he said he removes restrictive laws from the books, and that's something that we should give to him. Other African leaders haven't gone as far as attempting to, they've attempted, but they haven't succeeded, probably because of the lack of political will to succeed in removing a particular clause in our constitution and our general laws.
But just to add more sparks to just what you are alluding to, that also gave rise to the audience.
Yes.
When the president made mention that his effort, in terms of working with the national government of our country, the national legislature, and when he signed the dual citizenship.
Yes.
And
That's
you
exactly what it is.
you saw the smile, of course.
There was a fellow close to me who apparently he hadn't paid much attention to much of this.
And that was just wow. Yeah.
So that's something apparently the diaspora generally are they're concerned about. So maybe other African leaders should start following the lead of President Weah on this issue. And that's one thing I don't think he's gotten sufficient credit from the Liberian community outside of Liberia. Because they've always talked about the fact that they wanted this dual citizenship thing. They've only succeeded in getting it under President Weah. And some of the times, the most unjustified criticism you've had will be coming from the very diaspora that should be benefiting from those things, which is quite unfortunate. So you wonder whether these criticisms are based on actual policies on the ground or they're personal. So some of the times that's the kind of impression they leave us with.
Leaving us with those impressions. Let me see what Isaac Solo Kebe captured today as well. Solo, you read through the speech, you done the official position statement for the public out there, but you also had your own take on the president's speech. What did you capture?
Well, basically there are a lot of things that we'll continue to talk about for our people to understand, to hear them. But I just want to tell you that there was no surprise that the president has taken a lot of actions in terms of reaching the point where we have the dual citizenship. Before I come to that, I just want to lay a little bit as to who this president really is. You remember down the line, the president had to leave school to carry out his career and later come back to go to school and get his master's in different areas. But at that point in time, when other Liberians couldn't do it, that's what the president did. Why it is true he didn't have first degree, European scholarship, he had one scholarship, find a first degree, and even try to get a master's. A lot of Liberians wouldn't dare to do that. Why it is true he was not president, he didn't lobby in the corridors of Washington for Liberia to be sanctioned or official government to be sanctioned. What he did instead was to work with the allegiance to raise funds. So basically what those actions that only true leaders can take them. And this is why other leaders, because he was not just speaking to the youth, he was speaking to his fellow leaders that they should create an atmosphere, an alien atmosphere, to encourage those in the diaspora to be able to go and invest, because it's like Africa has a potential to grow, a potential for development. So his message, one of the messages he sent out today that I want to talk about, was it's not just only to those in the diaspora, but those leaders on the African continent. Yes, we can thrive. Yes, we have people with resources that want to invest into Africa. We have our younger population that need to come back and grow. But they cannot come back if that alien atmosphere is not there. So that one reason why the passage of the U.S. leadership, it gives you what? It gives Liberians the atmosphere, the conditions to invest into the country. Before then, if you are not a U.S. citizen, you cannot own property, you cannot buy a house. Anybody who is a Liberian can come and take the house for you. But with this, he's a fighter. Because you remember the first time he proposed through national referendum, people kicked against it.
It didn't work.
They didn't work.
You had to pass it through another means.
And they succeeded. So, one of the things I really want to stress, he said, if we can give our diasporan brothers the opportunity not to leave Africa, even if they left for better education, they will come back to invest. So his first message is, let's create this level playing field. Let's create the atmosphere for our brothers to come back. Because he said, once a Liberian is always a Liberian, once an African will always remain an African. But if they, take for example in Liberia, you see massive development, infrastructure development. Young people are building because he has created the atmosphere for them to build. Order him, even if he's president for the next 50 to 25 years, which of course he will not do because he believes in the Constitution.
Once a Liberian will always
so
be
he always want people to stay in Liberia, to invest in Liberia. So people are building. Even the common woman who said Billa was in the market is building.
Thank you, Solo. We'll come back. We'll shut the wrap up. We'll get all the schedule. These are things we expect to do as often as possible. Keep you in the know so that your speculation and the rumor mongers will not mislead you as to why the president visit here to Washington, D.C. seem to be having. We are making a very huge progress here. Gentlemen, we are in D.C. finally. I'm sure the doubting Thomases out there did not believe that President Weah will come to D.C. someday, and of course we'll have an interaction with Anthony Blinken, and of course with a restricted visa and what have you. But finally, this is where we are. What does the president appearance speak to Liberia-U.S. relationship? It was re-echoed, it was re-emphasized in his speech, but from your perspective, how does it strengthen Liberia relationship with the United States?
Well, basically, let me Fofana say, from a perspective, I've always said we Liberia, being the close relationship we have had with the United States of America, to the extent where we have a replica of the United States flag to Liberia, I speak of the kind of relationship we are having with the United States of America, and we're again emphasized by the Secretary of State of the United States of America, and he did not just emphasize the relationship. He particularly pointed out President Manneh Weah that yes, this man has done a lot in maintaining and keeping that strong bond that exists between the United States of America and that of Liberia. We are happy. I'm happy that under George Weah regime, the man that I work for, our relationship still continue. There have been nothing that have tempered with that relationship, and I can assure you that that relationship will continue to go. Look, Smith, I've always said there will be naysayers. There will be people with different opinions. But those opinions doesn't make what they are saying be doesn't make what they are saying being real.
This is an open broadcast, so you don't have to worry
people
as to who's passing.
So yes, I know for a fact that the analysis in Liberia, that relationship continued. It was demonstrated again by the Secretary of State of the United States of America through his opening when he was introducing it. Smith, one thing that caught my mind, I have gone with President Weah in all of his small meetings.
Why you wonder if you don't introduce the president?
I've gone to President Weah with all of his small meetings, and from what I saw today, Smith, today is one of the most happiest moments of me being around President Weah.
That's an A.
Based on some of the things that would be happening, some of the things that was said
behind closed door.
I
will come back to you, Carrasco. We got one more question to go, but let me come to Boakai. Yeah, just one more after this round, and the relationship owing to the president's visit here in DC. This is just day one. Remember, we were unveiled day two. As the situation unveiled itself, but day one with the level of engagement, how does it speak to our relationship? How does it rekindle, or how does it re-energize the relationship between Liberia and the United States?
Well, I think people are going to be looking at this with a renewed focus on Liberia. Tim Weah, when he played in Qatar, and then people say, well, and Tim scored that goal, and everybody was cheering him. They said, well, that's the son of the Liberian president. Then people started to ask, who's the Liberian president? And then there were flood of reports about George Weah, the man behind the Liberian presidency, the father of Tim, and all of those stuff. And that's where the unraveling of the real George Weah actually came about. All the fake narratives, began to start to unravel. You listen what happened on the stage today. We had two senior American officials coming up. Both of them should have introduced two different people. It should have been Anthony Blinken, the U.S. Secretary of State, introducing President Weah, and Gregory Meeks, the House Foreign Relations Chairman, introducing Manneh Weah. But even him wanted to talk about George Weah. Even the second person.
He wanted that opportunity to also say something about President Weah.
Manneh Weah, but then was talking about President Weah. He said, well, I just came from behind the scene. I was talking to President Weah, and then he said, well, I need to claim this. Tim Weah is in my district. And so he part of me. I own him and all of those stuff. And then he created chairs in the room. That tells you about the global icon, that he is. So I can only imagine that this will begin to foster the relationship and make it stronger, because people see now they're going to start examining some of the things, the narrative about. Firstly, you cannot lie that he's not practicing democracy. We have one of the most vibrant in the region. This has been attested by all international reports. President Weah made it a point of duty to emphasize during his inauguration that he's going to go beyond the allowance of free speech to allow people to assemble. And you just saw that tested recently. Our human rights record, we have zero political prisoners. We don't chase, the government doesn't stifle free speech. As a matter of fact, without any prodding, President Weah on his own accord decided to decriminalize speech offenses. This has been an age-old law that on the books from the 70s. That some of the leaders would have said, well, I'll just keep this thing.
Which of course chased a lot of people out of Liberia.
See, anybody deal with me, I will get you with that law, because the law on the book. But the man said, there's somebody who is well-intentioned. So I'll take it from the books. So these are two areas that Liberian Americans tend to kind of agree, but also agree on peace and security, global peace and security, counter-terrorism measures, all this stuff.
All right, gentlemen, we are zeroing in now. Maybe Solo will want to just say a word of two. I got one question for Carrasco, then of course I will close up. Solo, is there anything in terms of this visit? As I said, it's day one. There's a lot in stock, and we will unveil them subsequently. But as we hash those eggs, we'll come back on our platform to tell the Liberian people exactly the progress made here in Washington, D.C. But this is D.C. Solo. This is the most talked about political hub. This is where the ballot politics of the United States runs. We are here. You've seen the level of engagement. So, what's the take?
Well, Smith, let me say this. I've known and followed this president for the past 20 years. For the past 20 years. He never disappointed. He never failed. He's always up there every time he's given an opportunity. And his visit to Washington on this trip is beginning to yield fruits because his interaction with other leaders, including those from Washington itself. We talk about Anthony Blinken, we talk about Gregory Meeks. Just an opportunity, just a second with them is beginning to pay off. I can tell you for free that Gregory Meeks, who wanted an opportunity to introduce President Weah, has extended an open invitation to President Weah to come and visit in New York, something the president has to revisit owing to his schedule. And one thing he said to President Weah following the interaction today, he said Liberia deserves better. That tells you that the fake news they are spreading to them at Congress, and they are beginning to see that they are not the realities of the day. And so he said he doesn't want just ordinary investors to go to Liberia, but he wants real investors. Those were the words he used. He wants to come to Liberia. He said invitation yesterday. He said he wants to come to Liberia because when he told the president that you need to come to New York, the president said, I would love to be in New York. I was in New York. I also have businesses in New York, which of course he knows well, but I want you to come to Liberia. Then he told the president, I just don't want to come to Nigeria. I want to come with investors, not just ordinary investors, but I want to come with people who mean well. Real investors. Those words he stressed it repeatedly 2 times. Real investors.
That's good, Solo. Thank you, Bwaka. Thank you, Isaac Solo. Let me come to you, Scholasco, and I decided to save this question. Bwaka thought to make some more point around it, but again, it's good for the discussion. There's a new name, a new brand of Weah that has emerged in the U.S. cycle. And I see Harvard on U.S. television with a new Weah, Team Weah. And social media has its own interpretation. Has it added any additional value to the legacy of President Weah? Or has Tim opened more doors, or has he given his dad a more glamour as he moved the Liberia democracy? What's your take?
Well, basically, Steve, thank you. And these are some of the reasons why I'm excited, because like I said, I was in some of the closed door conversation, and like you rightly said, Team Weah has become the lobbyist in disguise. The lobbyist in disguise.
That's a good one.
For President Weah in Liberia as a whole. I know a lot of new doors will be opening, from today up to the time President Weah will be leaving, and subsequently, because some of the conversations that we have behind closed doors are very touching. Because of why? Because Team Weah today, who plays for the United States of America, as a matter of fact, Team was born in the United States of America. He had options.
Some of the places the lobbyists could not reach. Some of the doors they failed to open.
Yeah, I can say to you today, Smith, and to the rest of the people that are watching this podcast, trust me, Team Weah has opened a lot of doors for George Weah and the CDC and the Liberia as a whole, because to the extent where through this interaction from today to tomorrow, some of them will be very huge between the president of the United States of America and that of Liberia and that of other stakeholders that are gravitating. Some of the things they say, but we hear a lot about Liberia through individuals. Some of these individuals, but what we are seeing on paper and what we know that you represent as George Weah is quite different from some of the things the people are portraying. And so we need to look deeply and not just see from the surface. And those things touch me. It touched me because you got a lot of people that are portraying a very negative image of the country. That some of these people want to govern Smith. Some of these people, look, you cannot survive at the detriment of the country. Because whatever negative image that you are portraying for Liberia today, it's not with the president alone, it is with the country. So when it affects the country, it affects individuals that reside within the country. So those things that President Weah is bringing to the table definitely is sending a different signal. And from all indications, Smith, today the people in our local parlance, they say when you put yam in my stomach today, it will dawn. It will dawn because of what I have listened to. It will dawn because of what I'm seeing. It will dawn because what I envisage for Liberia, between Liberia and America relationship, especially with what Tim Weah has done for the United States of America and his father being the president of the Republic of Liberia, and the extra charisma that George Weah brings to the table is also something that we Liberia can boast of and be excited of. And Washington DC is the place to be today because we are very happy that some of these very good news are coming out of Liberia.
Thank you, man. Thank you, Sekou. Thank you, Sekou. Thank you, Wakai. Thank you very much, Isaac Solo Kegbe. And let me say thanks to all of you for taking your time off and viewing us. Of course, I'm going to close up. And let me say thanks to all of you for keeping us on your screen. We'll do this as often as possible. This is why it's a unique team. All we want to do is to keep your information updated, not distorted. And so keep watching us. We got more to bring for you. There's introduction later on today with the president and the folks here in the diaspora. We will bring you live that engagement with the president. This team will be available. In subsequent days, we will bring you more updates. It's day 1 today. We got day 2 to go. We got day 3. And we got a lot of great information to bring out for you. Let me say thanks to the entire team here again, Sekou Kalasko, Bwaka Fufana as a solo, the team from State Radio for their contribution. Until we are back here again, keep watching us. My name is Smith Tobe. God bless you. Enjoy your evening. If you're up, keep watching. We'll be back with you in a matter of time.